Don't look away.
4 disturbing true stories of strangers at the door. It was just after midnight when I first heard the knock. Not loud, not frantic, just a steady, deliberate tapping at the front door. I froze where I sat on the couch. I wasn't expecting anyone. I live alone, and my house sits on the edge of a quiet suburban street, the kind of place where you recognize every car that passes. At that hour, nobody ever came by. For a moment, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a branch, maybe a neighbor's kid pulling a prank. But then it came again. 3 slow, hollow knocks that seemed to echo through the hallway. I turned off the TV and sat in silence, straining to listen. No footsteps outside, no voices, just the faint hum of my refrigerator and the distant rush of cars on the highway. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I got up carefully, avoiding the creaky spot in the floorboards, and peeked through the side window by the door. At first I saw nothing, just the porch light casting a weak glow on the empty steps. But then, as my eyes adjusted, I noticed the figure. Someone was standing perfectly still just out of the light's reach. I couldn't make out their face. They were tall, wearing a hood pulled low, their hands shoved deep in their pockets. They didn't shift, didn't move, didn't even look at the window where I stood, just waiting. A chill ran through me. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That someone was standing on my porch doing nothing? It wasn't a crime, and part of me wondered if acknowledging it, if speaking about it, would somehow make it worse. The knock came again, this time louder. 4 sharp raps like they knew I was there. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out and started recording, just in case. The camera shook in my hands as I zoomed in on the figure. They hadn't moved, still rooted to the same spot, half hidden in shadow. But now, with the digital glare brightening the image, I realized something that made my stomach turn. Their head was tilted upward, directly at me. They'd been staring the whole time. I stumbled back from the window, my pulse hammering in my throat. Whoever this was, they weren't lost, and they weren't here by mistake. They knew I was inside. Another knock. This one slow, deliberate, like they were mocking me. I backed into the living room, shut off every light I could reach, and crouched low, trying to disappear into the shadows. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. I waited, clutching my phone, debating whether to dial 911. Minutes passed. No more knocking. No footsteps retreating. Nothing. I thought maybe they'd left. That maybe it was just some twisted prank. Against every instinct screaming in my head, I crept back to the window for one more look. The porch was empty. I pressed my face against the glass, scanning the yard, the street. Nothing. The figure was gone. A wave of shaky relief washed over me. I told myself it was over. Maybe they'd gotten bored. Maybe they realized I wasn't opening the door. I turned, heading toward the hallway to lock myself in my room for the night. That's when I heard it. From the back of the house, a faint scrape against the sliding glass door that led to the patio. I froze in place, blood turning to ice. The sound came again, metal against glass like someone testing the lock. My legs moved on their own, rushing me down the hall. I slammed my bedroom door, twisted the lock, and pressed my weight against it. My phone nearly slipped out of my sweaty hand as I dialed 911. The dispatcher's calm voice was a lifeline as I whispered what was happening. She told me to stay on the line, that officers were on the way. I sat there in the dark, listening. The scraping had stopped. For a moment, it was so quiet I thought I imagined everything. Then came a sound that made every hair on my body stand on end. A voice. Low, muffled, but right outside the thin barrier of my bedroom window. I know you're in there. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The voice was so close I could hear the condensation of their breath against the glass. Silence followed. 5 minutes later, red and blue lights cut through the curtains. The pounding at the front door this time was from the police. When I finally stepped out, trembling, the yard was empty. No footprints, no sign of forced entry, no sign of anyone at all. They took my statement, swept the property, and assured me to call again if anything happened. But when the officers left, the emptiness of the house felt unbearable. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the walls, every gust of wind outside the window made my chest tighten. I kept thinking about the figure, how long they'd stood there, how still they'd been, how they moved from the front to the back without me ever hearing their footsteps, and the way they spoke, like they weren't trying to scare me, like they were promising something. That was 2 weeks ago. I've since installed cameras, alarms, and motion lights. Nothing unusual has shown up. But sometimes when I review the footage, I catch glimpses, barely there shadows on the edge of the frame. Too blurry to be certain, too vague to report. And every night, just as I'm about to fall asleep, I swear I hear it again. 3 slow knocks, somewhere in the house.
The Blackout.